Hi guys, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive. Great to have you along for something that's a little bit different. This is a mini series I'm putting together. I get asked all the time about some of the big fights I've been to over the years. I've been very fortunate to have gone to quite a lot of fights in Las Vegas. Since 2009 was my first fight, which is what we're going to cover here for the last, 13 years. Probably been about sort of 20 to 25 times. I'm not quite sure, but we're going to go right through them. It's not for everyone, but as I said, I get asked a lot about some of the experiences that I've had with the big fight. So we're going to cover them in these episodes. I think we're going to do probably 3 fights per episode. And just to give you guys a bit of an insight on what it's like to go to a big fight in Vegas, and of course my personal experiences since I've been going. So the 3 fights we're going to cover in this episode is the Manny Pacquiao Ricky Hatton fight from May 2009. The second one is Floyd Mayweather and Shane Mosley that took place in May 2010. And Manny Pacquiao and Shane Mosley, which took place in 2011. So before we get started, I just got to divulge, it wasn't actually technically my first fight in Vegas. I was in Las Vegas in 2003 with my wife, and we looked up if there was any boxing on that weekend, and Shane Mosley was fighting Raul Marquez. It was at the not the MGM, it was at the Mandalay Bay. So we went up there and got tickets for that, but it ended in like the second or third round with a badly cut eye. So I'm not going to officially count that in these series. As I said, it wasn't specifically a fight that I went to go there for that fight. It was just part of the holiday that we had. So I hope that makes some sense. So as I said, Manny Pacquiao, Ricky Hatton, May 2009 at the MGM Grand. Look, I must admit, it was a bit of a spur of the moment decision to actually go. I'd always wanted to do it, just like any massive boxing fan. I'd always wanted to get to Vegas for a big fight. And I can't remember exactly why, but I made the decision pretty much on a whim. Like, that's it, I'm going. And I actually went over by myself, which I know is probably a little bit hard to believe. I just said, that's it, I'm going. I've always wanted to do it, and I'm going to just book my ticket, and I'm just going to go. So I went to Vegas. I didn't know what to expect. As I said, I'd only been there a couple of times before, but not for the fights on this occasion. And so I started at the MGM Grand where the fight was. I wandered around the casino. I had no idea what was going on or what was happening or any of that sort of stuff. So I actually missed the weigh-in, which to this day I'm absolutely spewing about, because it looked like it was an awesome weigh-in with the Brits and all that there. So I missed out on that. I missed out on all the other fight week festivities, like the workouts and the press conferences and the grand arrivals, you name it. I missed out on it because I just had no idea what was going on. So I wandered around the casino all week. I mean, you can still have lots of fun in Vegas by yourself, don't get me wrong. But, I wandered around. I met some people. I played a little bit of poker and sat next to some Brits, a lot of Brits in Vegas, obviously. And just had a really good week, but probably didn't have the kind of experience I have now that obviously I know what is going on. So to the week itself, or the fight itself, I did meet a lot of Brits during the week at the bars, and as I said, playing poker and all this sorts of stuff. They were everywhere. The one thing you got to give the Brits credit for is that when one of their athletes is competing anywhere in the world, they travel. They support their athletes, and you can hear them all through the week. All I heard was, there's only one Ricky Hatton. That's all you could hear everywhere you went. And look, it made for a great atmosphere, I will say that. But I think they, from memory, some of the bars ran out of beer that week because the Poms were just drinking them out of beer. And look, it was just a great atmosphere. I must say there was lots of Filipinos there as well, but the Brits didn't quite know how to take the Filipinos. Now, if you know the Brits, they have the friendly rivalry with the Aussies and obviously the Americans or Kiwis, South Africans, whoever it might be in the sports that they play. And, there is that friendly band, sometimes not so friendly banter, but in this instance here, they weren't quite sure what to make of the Filipino fans, because they were giving as good as they were getting. But if you know the Filipinos are such beautiful people, they're very hard to get angry with. So the Poms, as I said, didn't really quite know how to take them. But I remember getting to the venue on the night. I had pretty good tickets. I sat next to a bunch of English gentlemen. They're probably late 50s, early 60s. Really good guys. So got talking to them. They were obviously there for Ricky, and all through the arena. You could just hear the trumpets and the drums and the singing, and it was just awesome. They really got behind Ricky. Unfortunately, as you can see here, didn't quite work out for Ricky. And I must admit, sitting through the first round, I really had a bad feeling that I was going to go all that way and the fight was going to be over in one round. I legitimately thought that was it. And look, to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have, felt badly about it. It was just the whole experience was just awesome. I mean, they had all the, the celebrities at ringside, and I can't even remember who was on the undercard, to be honest, but it was just a really, really good experience to be there, I think. So this fight it was for, as I said, the MGM. So yeah, on the undercard, I've just got it here. So Abner Mares, Humberto Soto, Danny Jacobs, Arizlandi Lara, and Matthew Hatton, Ricky's brother, all fought on the undercard. Not necessarily in big fights, but they were all on the undercard. It was for the IBO super lightweight title, whatever the IBO sort of means to people. But as I said, the fight ended in the second round. You're going to see it in a second here where he gets absolutely pulverised and splattered all over the canvas. But I just remember the atmosphere in the arena that night. The Filipinos were full of voice as well. Of course, the Poms were as well. And right from the word bell, you can see that Ricky Hatton went right after Manny. And Manny was just in that, this was his peak. This was his absolute peak. He was coming off the De La Hoya win here. And he was just awesome, lightning quick, super hard, powerful, great on his feet, and he really had Ricky all over the place. And look, to be honest with you, I know Floyd Mayweather Senior was in his corner. It wouldn't have mattered without Angelo Dundee and Freddie Roach and you name it in the corner with him. There was no way it was going to make any difference. Manny was just an absolute machine that night, and just literally took Ricky Hatton to pieces. So it was just one of those fights where you just had to be there to experience it. Just as I said, the atmosphere, the yelling, the screaming, the cheering, and the thud of when Ricky Hatton hit the floor. Now, I could actually hear it from where I was sitting. He hit really, really hard. And obviously, he got knocked down twice in the first round, and the third one put him out for good. But I remember after the fight, actually, I wanted to go to the after party, so I was at the Mandalay Bay, and if you know Vegas, it's close to the Mandalay Bay, close to the MGM, but just long enough that it's a fair old walk. So I trudged all the way down there. It was a stinking hot night, and I went down there. It was like some sort of pool party, and Manny, he was supposed to be there at whatever time it was. He was 2 hours late, so I didn't actually get to see Manny, but all the Filipinos down there were celebrating hard. And I actually remember them singing, "There's no more Ricky Hatton, no more Ricky Hatton," and it was so funny. And as I said, the Brits, normally they might have taken offence, but they couldn't help but laugh either. But it was just a really, really good event. And there's the knockout that you can see right there. So that was it for poor old Ricky Hatton. You can see there's no way he's getting up. But so that was it. So that was the first fight. And look, it was just a really great experience. I had a ball. Even though I went by myself, I met so many good people. I got sick of trying to explain to Americans that I wasn't English, that I was Australian. At the end, I just gave up and said, "Yeah, whatever. I'm a Pommy." I was one of the crew for the week. But look, had a ball. It took me another year to get back there. I swore that after that fight I was going to become a regular, and obviously I did. And the next fight I went to, of course, was Mayweather and Mosley, which took place on May 1st, 2010. Again at the MGM Grand for the WBO welterweight title, I think it was. Now on the undercard, Canelo fought. He had a ninth round stoppage of Miguel Cotto's brother, Jose Miguel Cotto, stopped him. Now, the one thing I remember about this fight, of course, this time I was a little bit more prepared. So good right hand there. I remember how that shook up the not only Mayweather but the stadium. The place was rocking after that. But I was a lot more prepared for this one. I made sure I went to the open workouts. I went to the grand arrivals, which is great. What the grand arrivals is they the foyer of the MGM Grand, they blockade it all off. The fighters arrive at the front. They come in and they make their way through thousands of fans. They get interviewed and all that sort of stuff. It's just really to kick off fight week. It is really good opportunity to get sort of up close. It's hard to get really up close because you've got thousands of people sort of trying to get at them. But I remember they had a display in the MGM foyer. They always have the ring set up there, so they have the fight posters and they have the ring and that you can get photos and all that sort of stuff. And they had a mini exhibit, I suppose you call it, with trunks and robes and boots and sort of stuff that the guys had worn in previous fights. So that was pretty cool. And like the Pacquiao Hatton fight, met a lot of people. The good thing about these fights in Vegas is that people from all over the world go there for the fights. They don't just go there. I mean, obviously a lot of them gamble and all that sort of stuff and drink and carry on. That's great, but all the fight fans, and they converge on the one place. The MGM Grand was a great place to hang out and people watch and people meet. So all the different people you would see there and get talking to, and everyone's there for the same reason. It's a really, really good atmosphere to go over and experience. So you would have seen there in that second round, the roof nearly lifted off the place when Mosley landed that right hand, by the way. The place was rocking, and I think if you look back at the replay, Mayweather wasn't really in a lot of trouble. I think he did get rocked, the knees buckled, but I think he recovered really well. And the one thing I remember after this, though, is all the excitement after that second round, how dull the rest of the fight really was after that. It was actually quite disappointing, and it was probably, I was disappointed in Shane Mosley because I was a real fan of Shane. Of course, he was coming off the Margarito win here and was really in some good form. He'd won the WBA welterweight title. Maybe that's what this was for. I can't remember, but might have been the WBA welterweight title. That probably makes a bit more sense. So I don't think Mayweather actually held a WBO title. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, so one thing, as I said, I was disappointed after that second round. Shane pretty much just stopped to walk, and he let Mayweather pretty much win every single round after that. Now, I don't know whether that was just a case of Floyd just being too good. Obviously, he's a legend and can make adjustments. That's what he's known for. But the lack of fight that Shane showed after this was, I thought, really, really disappointing. And Floyd just pretty much dominated and won every single round after that. But the experience itself, as the first one, was great. Probably not as electric as the Pacquiao-Hatton fight was, with the fan engagement. Of course, with Pacquiao-Hatton, you had the Brits and the Filipinos mixed in with the American fight fans and all that sort of stuff. So it had a little bit of a different feel. Apart from that second round where Shane landed that right hand, as I said, the fight itself was actually quite dull. Floyd just did what he had to do, and probably one of those fights that really should have happened 5 years earlier. It would have been a lot better, I think, but unfortunately it didn't. And this is the fight we got. But the decision was unanimous for Floyd. He won 119 to 109 times 2 and 118, 110 on the other card. So really, apart from that second round where he got rocked, he literally pretty much won every single round bar one, I think, on one of the judges' scorecards. So you can see here, around 10 of 12. At this point, I must admit, I was looking at the clock, just waiting for it to wind down because there wasn't much sort of happening. It would have been interesting if they had a fought maybe at lightweight or light welterweight or something along the journey, or even at welterweight a couple of years before. But in this instance here in 2010, it was all one-way traffic for Floyd Mayweather. So he got the decision win. Wasn't going to be the last you'd see of Shane Mosley, of course, because the next fight I'm going to cover here is his fight with Manny Pacquiao. So I'll move on to that one now. So this is Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather. You can see there that Manny with the yellow gloves. I think that was for some sort of charity. I think he was supporting at the time. I can't remember what it was, but he wore the yellow gloves to support it. So this was at the MGM Grand, May 7th, 2011. I remember on the undercard, there's a ripper fight between Jorge Arce and Wilfredo Vasquez. Arce knocked him out in the last round. Kelly Pavlik also fought on the undercard. But again, with this one, this was probably a dull fight as well. You see in a second here, there it is there, that Manny put Shane down in the third round. And again, after that, he pretty much won every round. So this probably wasn't the most eventful fight either. And after the Pacquiao-Hatton excitement, probably a little bit of a letdown a couple of years on. But look, I remember the week while I was in Vegas that week, a lot of Filipinos again came out to support Manny. But he was just one of those fighters. No matter where you went, whether you're a Filipino, American, Australian, no matter what it was, the support for this guy was just astronomical. And this is where he was at his peak of his appeal, I suppose you would call it. This is when, as I said, after, I think before this, so it was 2011, he'd had the two fights in 2010, they were both in Texas. against Clottey and Margarito, coming off the Cotto and Hatton fights. He was such in super form in this fight. And you can see there, he made Shane Mosley look very, very ordinary in this fight. So, again, it was all one-way traffic. Manny was just, again, a man possessed. The scores were 120 to 107, 120 to 108, and 119 and 108. So he really did it quite easily, and as I just said, he pretty much won every round. But again, I just remember the whole fight week. By this stage, after 3 fights, I consider myself a little bit of a pro. I knew all that was going on. I went to all the festivities again, and just had a ball. And I remember this particular trip met a lot of other fans that were there, and you'd be surprised how many people like myself actually went over by themselves and to experience it. So a lot of fight fans out there that maybe don't have friends or family that want to go with them, so they just go by themselves, which is what I did. So, so you can see there, so up to round 8 there, Manny won that fight quite comprehensively, unanimous decision. So that's it for the first 3 fights in this series. That was Pacquiao Hatton, Mayweather Mosley, and Pacquiao Mosley. So the next fights will be, I think, I haven't actually got them in front of me, but they were, let's see, I think they were Mayweather and Cotto, Pacquiao and Bradley, and Pacquiao Marquez, which was in 2012. So they'll be in the next episode. Look, I hope you enjoyed this. Just again, just a little bit of an insight of my experience, what it was like to go over for these fights. And until the next episode, we'll see you then.